Good morning. We're looking at Matthew 5, verse 43, just verse 43, and it's a very simple message this morning. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. That's what Jesus started off here saying. Then, of course, in verse 44, he says, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. He's going to tell them to love their enemies, but the distortion from the religious leaders, the teachers of the law, the Pharisees, is you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Does that sound like something that the Old Testament taught? I mean, of course, in the Old Testament, there's nationalistic warfare against those who oppose God's people. But does it teach love your neighbor and hate your enemy? Well, let's see. Well, I'll show you some scripture. The answer is no, and it's part of the problem that Jesus is addressing. Jesus is addressing and has repeatedly addressed the fact that they're taking the text and kind of going beyond it sometimes. They're distorting it. And so the message is real simple. Don't distort the Bible. Leviticus 19:18, do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against one of your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. So the established piece, love your neighbor, right? Okay. But it also says, not to seek revenge or bear a grudge. But you might say, but Brian, that verse says your people. Okay. Leviticus 19:33 and 34, just a little while later. When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger or who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Later, Proverbs 24:17. Do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and let not your heart be glad when he stumbles. A little while later, same chapter, Proverbs 24, verse 28, 20 through 29. Be not a witness against your neighbor without cause, and do not deceive your lips. Do not say, I'll do to him as he has done to me. I will pay the man back for what he has done. Does that sound like the way that you are to sort of relate in hatred to people? No. The text isn't making an individuated and does not make these individuated statements in the Old Testament about how you are to hate your enemy. But see, you can twist scripture. And there's a scripture twisting that was happening in Jesus' day. He's calling it out. He's addressing it. And he's calling to task people who were letting scripture be twisted and repeating it in ways that added onto it and distorted it in ways it wasn't intended to. So you have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. He's about to respond to that. We'll talk about that response coming up in a future video. I just want you to know that it's not okay to take the Bible and twist it to what you'd like it to mean. Jesus wouldn't let the religious leaders of the day do it, and we don't get to do it. Take care. Have a good day.